and is able to sometimes remove certain language from the contract if it's not, if he deems that, and I'm saying he, but real estate lawyers come in both genders, and if the real estate attorney realized that some of the language in the contract is not in the best interest of the client, they're able to make changes to the contract and negotiate with the seller or the seller's attorney to actually make sure that the contract is fair and equitable. So I would recommend do not go through this process without an attorney, and it's got to be a real estate attorney, um, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, because there are a lot in the contract that is a little legalese could be very daunting sometimes. Okay, let's move down a little bit. Um, we're too far down, I think. Oh no, we're in the right. Oh, sorry, I was wrong. You were right. You were right where you were. Right. Okay, so now we've gone through the lender, the real estate broker agent, the role of the attorney, and now we're moving to the licensed home inspector. Now this part is very long because I want you to understand the importance and um, the critical nature of getting a licensed home inspection done before you sign a contract for a property. So we're going to go through this, and hopefully at the end you have some questions and some comments on this. So the licensed home inspector, that's a cost that's going to be borne by the person who's trying to buy a house, because you are the one that wants to know that the property you're buying is actually worth the money they're asking for it. And you're only going to know that when you have a home inspection. So I'll tell you what the home inspection, what the home inspector does and why you need a home inspection. The licensed home inspector is a good source of reputable home inspectors in the a good source of reputable home inspectors in the American Society of Home Inspectors. And there's a website, www.ashi.com. And this particular step in the home buying process will determine if the buyer, you who's looking for the house, will go through with the purchase of a particular property. And we're going to look at the things that the inspection report would reveal about a particular property. So some typical items included in a professional home inspection, and it's a very long, very detailed. If you get a good home inspector, the more detail that's in that report is best for you. So and it's got to be a licensed home inspector, not a friend of yours who build houses and you think that they know about this. Don't do that. And so the licensed home inspector will look at the foundation of the property, the basement, crawl spaces, including what type of construction is at the base of the property. They look at the structural stability of the property. They look for things like termite and rot damage and water damage, water penetration. They'll also look at the roof and the related features of the roof, including the chimneys, the gutters, skylights, vents, roofing materials, and everything that has to do with the roofing. They'll also look at the outside of the home or the exterior, which would be the doors, the decks, the exterior walks, the porches, the steps, the windows, and they look at it very closely, very carefully for everything. They're also going to look at the interior, including the ceilings, the walls, the floors. They'll look at the kitchen and the bathroom fixtures and the appliances and the ventilation in the bathroom and the kitchen. They look at the plumbing system and the electrical systems. They look at the heating and the cooling systems, especially people with central air conditioning. They look at the yard, the outside, because they want to look for the drainage. How is the drainage outside? And people in Christian Fellowship may appreciate that right now because we're going through some issues with drainage. The yard, they look at drainage fences. They look at the grading of the yard. They look at the landscaping, the retaining walls, the recreational facilities. Like if you have a deck, They look at, or if you have a basketball court or you have a tennis court on the property, they look at the paved areas. What kind of concrete did they use? Is it susceptible to cracking, or is it already cracking and you need to pave it? They look at septic tanks, and some homes have water wells, especially those in Pennsylvania in the Poconos. They look at the sewer lines. They look at every detail of the property. And my next comment, you'll see that one of the important things to be very diligent with the inspection report is that if you made the purchase contract contingent or dependent on a satisfactory inspection report, the inspection report will give you your options so that the buyer has options to address any problems with the house before signing a contract. So I'm begging anyone on this line who's thinking to go into this process, do not sign the contract until you get a detailed report, inspection report from a licensed inspector to make sure you know what to expect, whether the house has problems, are they big problems, little problems, intermediate problems? Is it something you could do yourself? Is it structural? Is the house, once you move in, the roof gonna cave in on you, or there's a hole that's under the house you want to get a detailed report before you sign a contract. Don't do it the other way around. Some people sign the contract first because they fall in love with houses, and once they get the report, they realize that the house is what's called a money pit. Back in the day, there's a Tom Hanks movie that you should look up. It's called the Money Pit. It's hilarious, but it's very true because some people find themselves in situations with properties like that. And so let's come down a little more, Mr. Zoom Manager. If the inspection report, gotta go up a little bit more. We came down too far. If the inspection report has major problems, if the inspection report major problems in the property, then the buyer has recourse. You can either cancel the sale and have your earnest money returned. And earnest money is that initial small down payment you made when you looked at the property and you were considering it. You made a small down payment. Sometimes it's anywhere between $1,000 to $5,000. And we have two brokers on the line. So Michael Bryan, who spoke earlier, he's knowledgeable in that area also. The earnest money is usually designed to take the property off the market while you get an inspection report, and you consider other things in your attempt to purchase the property. Let's come down a little bit, Mr. Zoom Master. You can also, besides getting your earnest money back, you can also negotiate with the seller to fix some of the problems. But this part, that's a slippery slope here. And sometimes the sellers will negotiate because they don't want you to back out of the contract. They will agree to fix some of the items that was identified in the inspection report, but they don't always do a really good job. They do what's called a whitewash to make it look like it's fixed, and many times it's not really fixed, and you end up with sometimes the same problem after you move in or a bigger problem. So that second part, negotiating with the seller to fix the problems, you want to be careful what you agree to in that area. And number three, you could request a credit, which would be monies set aside in escrow. We'll talk about escrow later on, from the seller for the amount it would cost to make the repairs and complete the repairs yourself after moving into the home. So that's a good option. I usually like the first and the third option more than the second one, because at the you can negotiate to for the seller to put a certain amount of money, and the only way you're going to know how much money should be set aside in escrow is because once you get the inspection report and you have identified the major problems or the ones that you would like the sellers to remediate before you move into the house, you must you must go and do some research and get pricing for what it's going to cost to do the repairs that you're asking the sellers to take responsibility for. So if the roof is almost ready to go and your inspection report highlighted that the roof is really bad and you would have to replace it or replace most of it within your first year of owning the home, and you want to negotiate with the sellers to actually put on a new roof before you actually take possession of the house, you want to make sure you know how much it'll cost. If the seller goes, well, no, we'll keep some money in escrow, we'll put some money in escrow, and once you buy the house, you could then fix the roof. You want to go by Home Depot or Lowe's or whoever you use and find out that you have to know the type of roof for one, and the inspection report will tell you that. You want to know what needs to be done, and so when you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or one of these places, let them know what it is you need to fix, and they'll tell you how much it's going to cost, and then you let the seller know how much money needs to be in escrow. So don't allow yourself to be railroaded in the sense that the seller says to you, oh, I'll set aside $5,000 in escrow for you to fix the roof. But when you actually go to fix the roof, you realize the roof will cost in excess of $10,000 or $15,000. So you want to do that research first and come from a position of strength when you asking sellers and their attorneys to set aside money in escrow to fix repairs after you become the owner of the property. So you have to, this whole process is very interactive. You can't leave it up to the broker alone to do everything. You can't leave it up to the attorney alone to do everything. You have to be side by side with all your partners, especially the real estate agent, the attorney. Well, the home inspector is a one-time deal. So once you get an understanding as to what you're facing, your partners will help you with more of the technical things that you need to know. So the inspection report is one of the most important part of the process before you actually sign a contract. And again, it's not very expensive. A licensed inspector, of course, there's different costs, but it's anywhere between $300 to $500 depending on the size of the property. I mean, if it's a property, let's say like the size of our church, obviously an inspection of that would probably be more than $300 or $500, because the last time we did one it was $1,000, but that was the property at Empire Boulevard. It's huge, and we had a lot of problems up there. But in a normal um, 1 to 4 family house or a condo or a co-op, well, co-ops, people don't really do inspection reports on co-ops, but in a single family house or a 1 to 4 family house, $300 to $500 would be the fee for a licensed home inspection. That will probably save you a lot of trouble later on. And I have many stories I could tell you about. We don't have enough time right now. The buyer should be present during the inspection. The inspection usually take a while, depending on the size of the property. It's anywhere between 1 to 3 hours, and a very necessary cost. It's not a whole lot. This is a cost that you really should expect to carry, because it'll give you it'll help you make a better decision on the property. And that's where your leverage is. Your leverage is in the inspection report based on what the licensed inspector is seeing about the property. They let you know what they see. Some of them will actually sometimes put in the report how much the repair would cost or the replacement would cost. So the inspection report, please never bypass that. I have had clients who did that to save $300 or $500. And if you know the term penny wise and pound foolish, that's what you'll see in the dictionary if you go to look that up. So the inspection report is extremely important. Do not bypass it. Okay, so now we come down to the appraiser. And when you apply for a loan, the bank, the lender will require a professional appraisal of the market value of the property. The bank would never just go, oh, they want $500,000 for the house. Let me give you some money to buy that house. They never do that. The appraised value of a property determines the amount of money the bank is willing to lend you. And if the appraised value is lower than the purchase price, the appraisal gives you the right also to back out of the contract. So if the property come in for lower than what the sellers ask, you can either go back and ask them to renegotiate the contract to bring it in line with the actual value of the property, or you could tell them, you know what, I don't want this house anymore. I don't think I'll go through with it. And therefore, I'm going to walk away from the contract. They can't sue you for breach of contract because the appraisal gives you the right to walk away, because the property is actually not, the value of the property is not as they thought or as they said. So that also gives you another chance to get out of a contract if you so wish. But you don't have to. You could renegotiate with the contract with the sellers and their attorneys. So now we move to, and please write your questions down so you don't forget, and whatever comments you may want to at the end of the presentation. So now we move to the property insurance. You have to insure a property that has a mortgage on it, because as long as there's a mortgage, you don't actually 100% own the house. You are now in bed with a lender, and they have rights too. So the lender will require that you purchase homeowners or hazard insurance. They're the same. Homeowners insurance or hazard insurance is the same. And that insurance protects the homeowner and the bank from loss in the event the house is damaged by fire or by storm. Back in the day, it used to be called fire insurance, but they broadened it a little bit more. So now it's called homeowners insurance or hazard insurance. And should the property be located, and I have personal knowledge of this because I live in a flood zone, should the property be located in a designated flood zone like Coney Island or Far Rockaway or Manhattan Beach or Gerritsen Beach, flood insurance is absolutely required. Your real estate broker or agent will be able to find out for you whether or not the property you're about to buy is in a flood zone. And flood insurance is much more expensive than homeowners insurance. But lenders will not lend you money, will not mortgage a property that's in a flood zone without that particular very expensive flood insurance. And of course, if the LTV, we went over LTV yesterday, it means loan to value. How much are you putting down and how much is the bank lending you? And if the LTV, the loan to value, is higher than 80%, meaning you put down less than 20%, of course, private mortgage insurance will be necessary. So you have to have insurances on the property to protect yourself and to protect the bank. And yesterday also, when we looked at the affordability process, we had the quick and dirty pre-qualification we did. We looked at how property taxes actually impact, how private mortgage insurance impact your overall monthly mortgage payment. So all these insurances that you have to purchase when you buy a property, that would have an immediate impact on your monthly mortgage payment, because a portion of the insurance payment is taken every month. And that's the where are we? Escrow. We did touch on escrow a little bit further up, but let's talk about escrow. Escrow is an account held by the lender or the loan servicer. Many times, lenders, especially the big banks, they do not service those loans. They farm those loans out to a third party servicer, which handles the payments of property taxes and insurances and all that stuff. So they have to establish a dedicated account called an escrow that would capture all those insurances and property tax money that you send in on a monthly basis when you pay your mortgage insurance. Now, your mortgage, when you pay your mortgage payment, when you make your mortgage payment actually includes the principal and interest, meaning the amount of interest you're paying back on the money you borrow. It also includes taxes and insurance. And this is why your mortgage payment, your monthly mortgage payment, is also called the PITI, PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And an escrow account um, has to be developed for that. They have to open an escrow account to capture all that money. And the reason that's done also is because your property tax payments are not due on a monthly basis. Your property tax payments are due to the city either every quarter, every half a year, or once a year. It depends on the lender. It depends on the area that you're in. Um, Even for those people who have already paid off mortgages and they are now in charge of making the property tax payment, they could also negotiate with the city to either pay it every 3 months or every 6 months or once a year. So the same thing, that's what the escrow account is designed to do, to capture that monthly money that you send in. And so when the property taxes come due and the insurance premiums come due, there's enough money in that escrow
Please, I
account.
put it in here.
There's enough money in that escrow account to actually pay those bills that would be coming into the lender. Because when they have a mortgage on your house, they have the greater liability, because if you put down 20% and the bank put up 80%, the bank have a greater risk. The bank is at greater risk. And that's why PMI is required when the down payments are smaller. And so also an escrow can be a holding account for documents and money by a neutral third party prior to the closing. And that usually that's an attorney that would hold those things. That's also escrow. And then we move to closing. And closing is actually, it's very nerve-wracking actually, closing. The meeting at which the sale of a property is finalized by the buyer signing the mortgage documents and paying the closing costs. And here's what happens. Come down towards the end, Mr. Zoom Master. Here's what happens at closings. You came down too much, I think. Okay. At the closing, the closing agent, and the closing could happen in a lawyer's office. It can happen in at a bank. It can happen in a broker's office. That's determined by the seller's buyer and the seller's attorneys what the closing is going to be. And so the closing is they host the appointments to obtain the notarized signatures from both sides. They also collect, that's the closing agent. They collect all the outstanding funds from the buyer, like the balance of your down payment money that maybe you have to pay at the closing, and other closing costs. Like I made a list for you of some of the closing costs. Um, Usually the appraisal fees paid up front. It's one of the prepaids. Credit report fees, that's part of your closing costs. Document preparation fees, loan origination fees, also known as points, application fees, interest rate lock fees. There are a lot of fees that accumulate at closing, and the closing agent is responsible for collecting all those monies at the closing. Let's move down towards the end, Mr. Zoom Master. Also, to the closing, at the closing agent, you pay the transaction, they pay the transaction fees, like insurance premiums, if that was monies that they collected, real estate commissions. The real estate agent get their money at the closing. Disbursement of the seller's proceeds, the money that the seller gets after the whole from the monies that you borrowed from the bank to buy the house, that's done at closing. And the closing agent also records the title transfer, because when you buy a property, title have to be transferred from the current owner to you, who's the new owner who's buying the house. Also, to the closing agent issues the title insurance policies, and because the title also have to go from the seller to the new owner, and they assemble an accounting of the transaction, which is called the sheet, the worksheet is called the HUD-1 statement, or the settlement statement. That gives you, that records everything that happens at the closings, with all the monies that are changing hands back and forth, and all of that before you get the keys. And then you get the keys when that is all said and done. So you're in your new home. Well, you're not in the home yet, but you have access to the home at this point, because the closing's over. Closings could be very long or they could be very short. The last one we experienced was, I think, almost half a day. And they're not all that long, but usually you should expect to take a day off from work to go to your closing, because closings are very unexpected. There are things that crop up that no one expects. So don't take 2 hours from work to run to your closing and run back to work. You may not be able to do that. So take a day when you know you're going to your closing, because there are some unexpected things that's going to happen. So this is the end of the purchase and financing process. Pastor Martin, where'd you come from?
Sister Garrett.
Hold on a second. Mr. Zoom Master, could you put back up the presentation, please? From the top. Go back up to the top. Thank you. So we are ready for any questions, comments, maybe stories you've had. We have a few minutes for that. So one of our brokers, Michael Bryan, you have a question? You muted.
Yeah, it's not a question. It's just something I saw happen, and it's not intentional at the closing. Is that the keys for the property is exchanged from the seller to the buyer. I remember going to a closing.
Yes.
I remember going to a closing, and the attorney for the seller forgot to ask for the keys. I had to remind them that the keys has to be transferred at the table.
And that's why I made that statement at the end, that closings have unexpected setbacks, and unexpected things happens at closing. So be prepared to take a day off to go to your closing, because things do happen. After all these partners are humans, and sometimes things get lost in the shuffle, or someone say they'll do something and they didn't do it. And then time, you have to just sit there and wait till, everybody get their ducks in a row. So closings could be a little stressful. So don't have the mindset that it's in and out. And if you are not a patient person, bring someone with you that could talk to you so you don't go crazy waiting for the closing to complete. But thank you, Michael Bryan, for
You're
that.
welcome.
Yes.
So there was one question in the chat, but you already answered it. It says, who carries the cost of the appraiser? And of course, that's the buyer pays that.
That's the buyer.
cost.
That's part, yeah. Part of your closing cost is the appraisal fee. However, that's usually it's one of the prepaids. It's not always, but it's one of the prepaids. Either way, the buyer bears the cost of the appraisal because the appraisal is in the best interest of the buyer also. You don't want to pay more for a property than what it's worth. So the appraisal is to the benefit of both people who are going to have the liability, which would be the bank and yourself. So the buyer pays the appraiser, the appraisal. You don't know the appraiser because it's a bank's appraiser, but you pay for the appraisal report.
Okay, just a general reminder that if you have questions, you can raise your hand or you could put it in the chat. Ms. Shauna is here and she'll answer some of the questions if you have, and the presenter will answer your questions also. So don't be afraid to raise your hand or put your question in the chat. And
right.
so, Dr. Martin, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you to Sister Garrett for doing a marvelous job once again on helping folk to understand, especially the inspection process, which I think is extremely important. But when you get ready to buy these properties, you don't know what's going on with some of these houses. Make sure you always choose a real good home inspector that knows what they're doing and not a fly-by-night. So you do that. That's very important. Thank you, Sister Garrett. God bless you. Keep up the good work.
Okay. Dixon.
Thanks for coming on.
Dixon Hall has a question. You can unmute and ask your question.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Miss Dixon Hall.
Yes,
hello.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can. Very
good.
Clear.
All right. My question is, I know the whole the workshop is all about buying a home, buying a house, like a one-family house. What if you have interest in
1 to 4?
Yeah, 1 to 4. So what if you have interest in a condominium, or let's say a co-op? Is the process the same lengthy process, or is there something eliminated?
Excellent question. The process is the same. The mortgage process is the same no matter what you're buying. The thing is with the different types of property, with the condo or let's take the co-op first. The co-op, you don't pay taxes, but you have something called maintenance fee. So
right.
instead of property taxes, you'll the maintenance fees added in. And I always encourage people to always buy home insurance. So you'd have to purchase insurance for the unit. It may be in a building, but it's still yours because you're getting a mortgage for it. So the process is the same. There are just some different types of paperwork for the co-op, but in terms of how you get qualified, what the bank looks at to qualify you to say, yes, we think this is a good risk, we'll give you a mortgage in X amount. The process is the same for co-ops and condos. With condos, also, I think condos, they pay taxes, they pay property taxes on the unit. And usually condos, your down payment, especially these days, I think you have to put down 20% when you're buying a condo. Yes. So there's usually no private mortgage insurance on condos, but also, again, you're going to have to purchase homeowners insurance because, you want to also protect yourself, and the bank wants the property to be protected. So the process is the same. They use the same criteria to qualify you for a mortgage, whether it's on a 1 to 4 family home or a condo or a co-op.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Ms. Dixon Hall.
Thank you. Because yeah, my reason for asking is that I currently live in a co-op, but they're not for sale. We have equity. We acquire equity within the co-op. So I'm hoping that someday soon they will decide to, hey, put these on the market so we can purchase them as the co-op owners. So that's why, I'm putting it out there so I can get myself ready just in case that happens.
I'm glad you brought that up, Miss Dixon. Were you living in the property before it was converted to a cooperative?
It has always been. It's a Metrolama. If you understand. Yeah, it's a Metrolama. So
I think Michael Bryan wants to put in 2 cents on that.
One of the things with the co-op, you're buying shares in a corporation.
Yeah, right.
And whereas the condo is a little bit different structure, but similar. And the process in buying the co-op, you have to go through a board and all of that. And sometimes people have good credit and good, but sometimes they'll deny you the right to own that co-op. So, so one of the things is you want to do is to get in touch with the co-op board or find out who the head of the co-op board is, to interact with them so you get a sense of what they're really looking for.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to sue them because it's so subjective.
Okay.
In other words, they may reject you. They may reject you, and they don't give a reason why.
No, but currently I reside in a court.
I know. I'm saying in terms of the differences,
Yeah.
That's I'm just sharing that in terms of,
because
just to be aware of another addition.
Yeah, because I do accumulate shares, but the buzz is that they might start selling these off. So, to the individual corporators. So that's why I just wanted, get myself ready, see what is required of me just in case that happens.
Let me give you some more information on that aspect of it, Miss Dixon.
Sure.
Since you already live there, and if they are selling, they usually have to give you the first preference. It's called insider.
Okay.
You get the insider option. And so you want to, and he's right. Speak to your co-op board or whoever's in charge, and let them know what process they're going to be going by, because one of the things that happened back in the day with and I'm saying back in the day because I've been at this since the late 1980s. So back in the day, what happened when you lived in a building that converts to a co-op, they have to make offers to the people who live in the building first. And if the people who live there decide, well, no, I don't want to purchase, sometimes they'll let you stay on at an increased rent, but sometimes also they make it impossible for you to stay, and eventually you end up moving out. But they have to make the offer to the people there first, and before they actually sell it to other people on the outside. So talk to your co-op management and see what they're saying about that.
All right. Thank you so much for thank you so much for the advice.
New York have all kinds of home ownership structures.
So I think Shauna wanted to say something. I'm not sure if she's still there. Shauna, if you still want to say something.
I was here.
Shauna.
The thing was when she was asking if the buying process was the same. The only difference that I can possibly say is that a lot of homeowners, buyers, when they come in, they say they want a condo. The first thing I always ask them is what type of mortgage pre-approval you have. 95% of condos and co-ops usually have to have a conventional loan. So when doing that, we're talking about the type of FHA and conventional, the 20% down. That's when Ms. Garrett was saying about the 20% down, we're speaking of the conventional loan. There are some condos, but usually the bank will have a list that are FHA approved for that. That's the only thing I can say, because, and then also you have to understand that usually condo associations have an HOA fee that goes towards your debt to income ratio. So they have to factor that into your debt to income ratio. So it has to be, you have to be very careful.
When you're going through the qualification process.
Yes.
Yeah, we did touch on the qualification process. Well, we did the qualification process yesterday, but we didn't define the different property structures between the co-ops, the condos, and the 1 to 4 family homes.
Okay.
That was a nice piece of information, Shauna. Thank you. I think I
And
saw
now,
Shauna.
hold on one second. We'll take Miss Hercules, and after her, we'll take Miss Silcott.
Okay, I'm asking for a friend. She had to leave, but her parents have a house, and they want her to put her name on the house so they can have a lower interest rate. So she wants to know, how would that affect her if she wants to buy like a house with her husband next year?
It will. So what's going to happen? What the parents are asking her to do is become a co-owner or a co-borrower in probably a refinancing process, because to get a second name or any name on an existing mortgage, you actually have to refinance the property. So if they're refinancing the property to get a lower interest rate, that's actually a good thing. But if they didn't need her to have the mortgage they have now, why would they need her to refinance? Because for many times when you refinance, your mortgage balance is actually lower. So you need less income to qualify. So that may be the reason they're giving her, but there may be another reason why they want her to be a co-borrower. And that could be, Shawnette, because they want to take money out of the property, out of the equity. If they're gonna do a cash out refi, then the mortgage, the loan balance would actually get bigger. And that's when they would require to have more income, because to ask for a co-borrower, it means you need more income. So she needs to be very sure that they are actually doing just a plain refi just to reduce the rate, in which case they shouldn't need a co-borrower. Or if they're taking money out, the loan gets bigger, and that's when they'll probably need to have a co-borrower because they need the extra income. And yes, it will affect her, because now on her credit report, she's going to be listed as a homeowner because now she's the co-borrower on somebody else's house, and she would no longer be able to claim first-time home buyer status when she wants to buy a house with her husband. And worse yet, if the debt on her parents' house that she's now a co-borrower, if the debt is large, it may prevent her qualifying to get a mortgage on a home with she and her husband. So she want to be careful before she say yes to her parents on that. You may want to have her call me on that, Shawnette.
Okay, thank you. I'll give her your number.
And if I may, and this is just in general for everyone, if someone asks you to co-sign on any kind of a loan, just be sure that you know that you are indebted. You are taking on a debt. It's yours. Because if they don't pay, you are the one that they're coming after. So in any aspect, when it comes to being a co-borrower, co-signer or anything, if you're not willing to carry that debt by yourself, do not do it, because it becomes your debt. Even if I love you, there are times when, you know, money and family and friends usually go east and west. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so we'll take Miss Marjorie Silcott at this time.
All right, Sister Garrett, thank you for your beautiful presentation.
Thanks for coming back, Miss Silcott.
Thank you. I'm from your sister church, so you'll be hearing from me too.
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
Yeah.
Right,
Yes. I think, well, I'm listening to the presentation and it seems more about existing property. How about if you're going in to get property, a new development? They're building these houses, and
Yes.
you were interested in one. What are some of the things you should look? Should you do the inspection the same way? I mean, it's a
Oh,
new
no,
property and the
don't go further.
appraisal.
Don't go further, Miss Silcott. You're not doing any of that. Um,
Oh,
so
Good
that's
question.
I'm so glad you brought up that question. Um, because there are a lot of developments that are happening. So many of the developments, um, the management, whoever the contractor or whoever is developing the development itself, and a lot of them are like partnerships with the city and the county. So usually they have approved lenders. So if they have, when they have approved lenders, let's say, I'll give you an exact example. Um, when a development is about to begin, and they sign the papers on the dotted line with the city and the contractors and all of that, they usually try to partner up with a bank that would qualify buyers that are interested in the units as they go up. So what happens is they put out applications, and people who are interested would fill out the application, send it in, and then those applications will go to the bank. And the things in the applications usually is what we talked about last night, Miss Silcott. Things like your income, how much you make, what's your household income, um, how long have you been employed. They want to see your tax returns to make sure that you have consistent income. They want to see, they'll ask you for pay stubs for 1 month, so they make sure that you actively now working. They want to see that you have some money, so they'll ask you for bank statements, sometimes 3 to 6 months. So all the things that you will submit if you're buying a house that's already existing, when you fill out that application, you also, they'll ask you for all those documents, because the approved lender that they're working with will have to qualify you to see if you could afford one of the units before they would sell it to you. So you don't personally have to do inspections and think about appraisals and all of that stuff. You don't need to get a real estate agent. You don't need none of that. If you already know the development is going up and you fill out the application, they'll take it from there, and they'll just ask you to send in the documents that they need so they could qualify you, or maybe reject you because for some reason maybe your income is low, or they can't verify your employment. So different things could push you out of the qualification. But when it comes to new property, new projects, new developments, they don't you don't have to do all of that.
okay. So are you more or less forced to use their lender, or could you still go out and shop around for your lender to see if you get a better, see if you get a better bargain, or are you
Miss
sort of
Silcott,
trapped? Yes.
Miss Silcott, all you have are good questions. Actually, it's a really good question. You're not, you're not you don't have to go with the approved lender, but it would be advisable to go with the approved lender, because the lender have already made the commitment to the people who are developing the project. So the applications that come into the approved lenders obviously going to take precedence over anybody else who are getting their loan from the outside. But you don't have
Okay.
to. If the development
Okay.
is large enough, if the development is large enough and the approved lender don't get enough qualified buyers to fill up the entire development, they will consider applications from people who are getting their money from another lender.
Okay.
So you're not tied to the lender. It's just that you have a better chance if you go with the approved lender. And by the way,
Yes.
the approved lender has to follow all the rules that like every other lender. So it's not like they're going to be doing anything special.
Right. Thank you.
I think Miss Shauna wanted to say something. She got overly excited when that question came up. So if you want to do a quick.
I was just saying that it's a great, great question. There are
Yes.
instances that a realtor can be involved, but what Ms. Garrett said was absolutely correct. If it's a large development, usually they have their own lender. They can pretty much do everything on the premises. But if you see like there's places where I am in Newark, there's houses, new developments going up. Yes, they still have a preferred lender, but they will consider, which Ms. Garrett said is absolutely correct. If it's their lender, they're more likely to look at them first. It takes much longer, the home buying process. It's, most of the time the home buying process is on average about 45 days. It takes about 6 months because obviously you're building a property. Other than that, that was it. I was just like, wow, that's a really great question.
It's a wonderful
Somebody
question.
asked.
I'm telling you, Miss Silcott have the best questions. Those
She does. She
Yeah.
does. The other thing to consider too, that a lot of times when you're seeing a property, if it's a property that's not in a large development, a lot of times you'll see on the listing that it has zero taxes, and that's because the property has what they call an abatement, which the taxes have not been assessed yet because there is nothing to kind of assess from the years before. But if you have a realtor and you're in a smaller development, like what I said in Newark, what you can do is you can try to see on average the area, the comps of the taxes in the area of what they may be assessed at when you claim ownership to the property. So
Also,
your mortgage may seem like it's going to be really low because your taxes are going to be at zero.
So Shauna,
Thank you.
since you have the floor, usually many times in these new developments, there's a tax abatement period that the people get. Sometimes it's 5, 10, 15 years where the taxes are either really, really, really low,
Right.
or sometimes non-existent.
Right.
And I'm glad you brought that particular thing up, because with those new developments, and actually Miss Silcott, you are the one that opened the door for that, but it's a good door. And when people get into these new developments, especially when they have the approved lenders, the mortgage payments actually look very low in the beginning compared to everybody else, because there's the tax issue where it's either really low or not there at all. So let me ask you this. Eventually the taxes are going to kick in because the tax abatement period ends.
Yes.
Who's supposed to disclose that? That piece I have never known. Who's supposed to disclose to the new buyer that there's a tax abatement for this period of time, and when it ends, your full tax bill is gonna kick in?
That's
Who's
a really
responsible
good question.
for that? The
So
real estate agent, or the bank, or the developer?
So if it should be the developer should be able to tell you, like, and if it's in the situation that it's being listed by an agent, the listing agent should know and should be able to disclose that information if the abatement is for a certain period of time and is ending. Because a lot of the condo associations, they have abatements on them, and a lot of the buyers don't realize that. And honestly, there's been properties that have been sold that has not been disclosed. Especially when you're going into a condo association. I'm sorry, not a condo. Yeah, a condo, or things that you really have to look into that to make sure that there isn't an abatement on the property. And that means the whole development itself. So I think everybody would probably point fingers at each other, but I would say it was more likely the listing agent or the listing side, the selling side.
Awesome.
So
Thank you very much on that topic. We have a couple of questions. We have Miss Cami, or Mr. Cami. We're going to take you in a second. There is a question in the chat that is asking about real estate agents in New York City. Do they have access to all the properties or all the homes that are for sale in the 5 boroughs? And they want you to speak a little bit about selecting a real estate agent. And while you're getting ready to answer that question, We'll ask Mr. Zoom Master to scroll all the way down to the end of the presentation so we can see the part about licensed home inspectors. So if you could go up a little bit more while you do that.
Towards the middle.
Okay,
Towards the middle.
so go ahead and answer the question about the real estate agents
Real estate
having
agents
access
in NYC have
and
access
how to select them.
that
Yes,
are
the
for
selection
sale in
process.
5 boroughs. Yes, they have something called the MLS, the multiple listing service. So they can see, or they have access. Also to Michael Bryan can probably give you a good answer there too. The MLS gives them access to all the available properties.
You
and
also
hold on,
have.
Let me answer the last part. Michael, let me answer the last part of the question first.
Okay.
About selecting a real estate agent.
Correct.
What I would do and what I have recommended to clients before, when you're selecting a real estate agent, the best place to start is friends and family who have purchased properties. Talk to them about the real estate agent that they use. If they were happy with the real estate agent, they'll gladly recommend that person. If the real estate agent they had was bad, they'll gladly tell you how bad that person was. So the best place to start is with friends and family or even coworkers who recently purchased homes. Ask them who they used. And if they give you a good report, chances are you could take a chance on that person. However, there's a caveat here. Even if your friend or your relative liked the real estate agent, it still may not be the best real estate agent for you. So what you want to do when you meet with that person, get a feel for whether or not you'll be able to work cooperatively together with that agent. Because even if your sister like that person, may not be the best person for you, but it's still also a good place to start. Also too, there's I don't have the website now. Shauna, Michael might have it. There's a website you could go on to research real estate agents also. Or the second thing that I used to do, I would ask clients, look through your neighborhood. Do you have any real estate brokers in your neighborhood? Just walk into the store, get to know them, talk to them, tell them you're in the market to buy a house, and get a vibe. Everybody get a vibe from the people they want to work with. So if you get a good vibe and you all seem to be working well together, you could take a chance on that agent. Also too, you don't have to stick with the same agent from beginning to end. If you start out with an agent that's not responsive to your needs, in the sense that if you have questions, they sometimes don't answer, or if you call them, they don't get back to you, or they're showing you houses that are much more expensive than what your pre-approval says, or worse yet, they're showing you houses that's in terrible neighborhoods, even after you told them you don't want to live in those neighborhoods. Those are bad agents. So you also have to know that just because you start with an agent, you don't have to continue with that agent if they're not meeting your needs. But there are a lot of agents around, and start with family and friends, start in your neighborhood, and also too, there's a website. So I don't know if Michael or Shauna could say anything about that.
You have different realtors association. In the 5 boroughs, you have Brooklyn Board of Realtors, just Brooklyn. Then you have Long Island Board of Realtors. That covers part of Queens and Long Island and Suffolk. That includes Nassau County and Suffolk. And then you have outside of the 5 boroughs, you got upstate in Westchester, you have another board. So you do have different boards that you can contact. Also, you can also go on the Department of State website, New York Department of State. They're the one that give the license to brokers and other business association. And you can see there if the person's license is current. You can also see if what they purport themselves to be, if they're a broker or agent, because there are people who give out business cards, say they're agents and so forth, and they're not licensed. I have encountered them. and I have reported them. So because it makes those who are legitimate looks bad, and
Yes.
real estate agents, we don't have the greatest reputation. I'm gonna be telling you this. So, because sometimes people do things because they're looking at the dollar at the end of the transaction.
Yes.
And so they try to protect their commission. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm not gonna butter anything up with you. So, in terms of trying to find out what's the status with an agent, you can check the New York Department of State. You can check there that they are the one that issued the license to that individual, or you can check with the different boards that in the borough that you're looking, or in the county that you're looking. So that way you can do your due diligence, and find out whether this person is, just because they're sitting in a real estate office does not mean that they're licensed.
Okay.
That's true.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to ask that Mr. Brian, if you could send the listing of those different places you just mentioned to
Sure.
to
Put that in the chat.
or in the chat so that persons can access it.
No
At this time, we're going to ask Miss CAMI, Cami, or however you pronounce that. Sorry for mispronunciation. You can unmute yourself and ask your question at this time.
This
Are we
is the
doing
mother
the
of
one
your
about
child.
the home inspection? Miss, Madam Facilitator, there's a question.
There's no question. They just wanted to see the space. So we'll take the question from CAMI at this point.
Sister
Sorry
Chung?
about that, Cami.
Sister Chung?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well, Cami.
Okay. Okay. This is the mother of your child, Sister Chung. Okay. So so I wanted to know regarding the co-borrower, right? I've heard where people say they've signed on for someone and then they took off their name after a year. How does that work? And
Okay, so one of the things people have to understand, and the treasurer actually gave a good one in here. When you have your home on a property, you want to know, is your name on the title, or is your name on the mortgage? If your name is on the mortgage, you're a co-borrower and you are 100% responsible for every payment. If the main person is paying the mortgage, then that takes you off the hook. The minute they're late with a payment or they stop paying, the bank will come after you, and that's a financial liability. So you can't take your name off after a year, because if you could take your name off after a year, then they wouldn't have needed you in the first place. So you stuck if you are on the mortgage, and the only thing that can be done to remove you from the mortgage is if that person refinance again and have a different co-borrower. That way they're able to release you from the loan, from the responsibility of the loan. But it'll take another refinance. You cannot get off an active loan without a refinance. So if they were told that if they were co-borrower on the mortgage and they were told that they took their name off the mortgage, that's not true. They're gonna have to see the documents to prove that. However, the second side to this is if a person's name is on the title of the property, that's a legal thing. And the owners could just get an attorney to remove the name from the legal title, from the title of the property. That's easier to do. You can't get off a mortgage unless you refinance. And if you're on a mortgage and you refinance, you have to be at the closing because you got to sign. So the person have to be sure, am I on the title or am I on the mortgage? Sometimes you want both, but it's easier to get off the title.
Okay, because what I was told at that time is like the person who was a co-borrower had the good credit, but the other person didn't have it. The person really wanted a house, didn't have the credit. So he was like signing for her because he had good credit. And then he told me that, he took his name off, People
Okay,
never tell you the truth, so I don't
well,
know. Yeah.
that's I
Something's
hope he's
missing in
not
that
gonna be
process.
I hope he's not gonna be sorely disappointed. But
Unfortunately, she passed last year with COVID, but yeah.
oh, and so he lives in the house?
No, they've separated. I mean, they weren't married either when he did this for her. They were just
Okay, so
friends. Yeah.
here's the thing with qualifications. If one person is bringing more money to the table and the other person is bringing good credit to the table, then the loan, actually the deal, would need both of them to qualify and to get into the house. However, if the person with the money is capable of carrying the entire mortgage without the other person, it means that the other person then don't have to have a financial stake in the monthly payments. But the person who needed the person with the good credit to qualify for the loan, they can't get that person off the loan, because to get that person off the loan, they'll have to refinance, and the bank will have to then consider the person with the money as an individual loan with one person. So if that person by that time, if their credit is better and they have the income, then they could refinance and have the loan solely on their name. But the other person with the good credit that was necessary to get the house, they have to be at the closing. So if he was at the closing and he saw it go through, and the loan was then made in her name only because her credit was better 1 year later, which I don't see how that could be. Because if she wasn't qualifying a year before on credit, she must have done some really, some real magic to make it better after a year to be able to remove him from the loan. But people say a lot of things, but it's best to see it in the documents.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We
actually,
have
Janet,
gone.
Cammy is Janela's mama.
I figured that out, but you think she want that on live stream? We want to thank everyone for being here tonight. And there was just one thing that I wanted to say, because it came up earlier about property taxes. Now, I guess I probably have the best reputation, but I'm just going to say it. There are those of us who have inherited properties. Your mama, grandmama, somebody had a property and it's all paid up and they have disappeared. They left you that property. You must pay your property taxes every single year like clockwork. You may make your payments quarterly or annually. However you make the payments are due. You cannot live in that property and not have taxes due. I know this is a mixed crowd. So if you are one of those persons who have inherited a property because mama, grandma, somebody left it for you, and you have never paid any taxes, please go and look into it and make sure you get that taxes up to date. Because one day, you may very well end up being somebody come and say they own the house, taxes. So please look into that. There's one thing that they say is always do once you live in this country is taxes. You have to pay taxes. And that applies to your property. So yeah, you always have to pay property insurance, even after you have fully paid for the house or whatever it is that you own, be it a single, multi, condo, co-op, whatever it is. Please make sure that you are paying your taxes and your water bill. With that said, I think I don't see any more questions.
Hold on. No, we need to, Mrs. Zoom Master, you're not on the licensed home inspector. You have to go up a little bit more. You want property insurance. Okay, here, it starts here. The person who wanted to see this, I hope they get the information. So could we make it a little bigger so they get all of it? Oh, I guess we lost it.
Okay. So
right. Licensed home inspector.
At this point, I just want to say,
I hope they got the information. Okay.
They would have taken a screenshot of the page, so they'll have the information. So if anyone would like to get, I guess, copies of whatever it is that's presented, you could reach out to the finance department and we will endeavor to get you the information. And I know we went a little bit over. It's almost 8:30, like a whole 30 minutes over, but I hope it was worth your time, worth you being here. I'm just going to take the opportunity to say thank you to Ms. Shauna. It's good to see you. And thank you for your active participation in our presentation today. I also want to invite everyone to come out tomorrow for a very interactive session where we're going to talk about, what we're going to talk about, Denise?
Discrimination.
Okay.
No, fair housing laws.
We're going to talk about fair housing laws and just some basic stuff that, you know, you just need to be, you just need to look out for because it's there.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're not surprised when you get out there to look for your stuff. So over to you, Denise.
And also to, did I send you the the page, how to file a complaint if you believe you are the victim of discrimination in housing? If I didn't, let me know and I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Okay, I think we're good to go. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. And I'm not sure if we have a closing prayer or we just say ta-ta.
No, we should. Michael Bryan, are you there? I think we lost Michael Bryan. I'll say the closing prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be together in this fashion, to listen and to help each other through this process of homeownership. As we are about to leave each other, Lord, we ask you to protect us and our families from all harm and danger, and help us tomorrow to be able to attend the third and final segment in Home Ownership 101. We thank you for your blessings and your favor, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Shauna.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, invite someone and come early tomorrow. If you think of some questions from when you go home today and tomorrow, you can come on a little early and we'll try to get some answers for you. Good night.
We're gonna sign in from about 6:30. Yes. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank
very
you.
much. This is awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for presenting.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
coming.
joining us.